Welcome to your GP to BC Discovery Journey begins here. Thank you for joining us today. I am Jodi Buckles. I'm a senior sales executive with Stoneridge Software, and I've spent over 26 years working with Microsoft Dynamics ERP and CRM solutions. I am based in North Dakota, and I focus heavily on helping our GP clients plan and navigate their move over to the cloud. So especially our GP migrations to Business Central. I love GP. I've grown with it alongside many of our clients, but I'm also excited about where Business Central is taking organizations today and in the future. And Kyle?
Yeah, thanks, Jodi. My name is Kyle Rehome. I'm a senior consultant here at Stoneridge Software. I've been working with GP for 14 years, maybe a little bit more now. I do just about everything with GP support. So from troubleshooting, data fixing, building reports, analyzing data, all that sort of thing. When I get to dig into the data and find the missing link or put things together, that's where I really enjoy working. And so when I'm helping customers get ready to move to BC, really going through their data that's in GP right now and figuring out what's important, how can we translate it. That's where I really like to work with that. So.
Awesome. Fantastic. So here's how we'll spend our time together for this session. We'll start by talking about the ERP solution itself, specifically what the move from GP to Business Central really means. Then we'll look at the supporting solutions that typically sit around GP and how those may change in the cloud. From there, we'll focus on your business needs and what works today versus what might need to evolve. And we'll talk about the importance of having the right team involved, because really successful migrations aren't just about technology. And then finally, we'll wrap up with planning and looking at some timelines and budget considerations so you can start really thinking realistically about next steps. So today is really about setting the stage for a successful GP to Business Central journey. We'll talk about how discovery brings clarity. So you're making informed decisions, not assumptions. We'll reinforce that moving to the cloud is more than just a technical upgrade. It's a business change, and that impacts processes and people and how you work every day. And finally, we'll show why a phased supported transition could be a good way to reduce risk, stay in control, and set yourself up for some long-term success. So at Stoneridge, our approach with GP to Business Central migrations is really grounded in the same principles as outlined in Mastering the Microsoft Dynamics Implementations, authored by our CEO, our one and only Eric Newell, who was just on stage a bit ago. And this framework is built on decades of real-world Dynamics implementations, and it's focused on reducing risk, aligning people and process, and driving that long-term success. And when we help our clients move from GP over to Business Central, our goal really is clarity and confidence. And we want to leverage best practices. We want to improve the user experience. And we just want to make sure that the move to the cloud really supports how your business actually works today and then also into the future as well. All right, let's get started with moving to the cloud, which we talked about is really more than an ERP, than just ERP. So there is an afternoon session that Tyler and Nikki will be hosting called The Power of the Microsoft Cloud. So they will be getting more detailed in that session. But this slide really shows that GP rarely lives on its own. Most on-prem environments, they rely on a whole ecosystem of servers and custom apps, integrations, infrastructure, all of that added cost and risk and complexity. So it requires the maintenance and backups, and there can be hardware failures, access issues, and some security risks as well with that. Let's start with the VPN and the Active Directory. So they're needed to securely manage the user access to GP and allow employees to connect remotely to the on-prem environment. And then the file servers really house the documents and reports that are tied to GP processes, requiring ongoing storage management and backups. The network shares allows users to access shared GP files, reports, and exports from the multiple locations. across the network. And we get into the local printers that usually are required for GP checks and invoices and operational documents, and then tying key processes to physical locations as well. And the SQL servers, they store and they manage all GP data and transactions, making them pretty critical, but they can be maintenance heavy dependency as well. And then the line of business and custom apps really extends the GP functionality, but that too can also increase some integration complexity. So when we talk about moving off of GP, it's not just the ERP decision. It's really all about simplifying the entire ecosystem, as we just talked about, reducing risk and hopefully setting ourselves up for what we have coming up next. So this next slide, we don't go deep on the licensing here because Missy's covering that in, again, more detail in a later session called Microsoft Licensing Made Simple. But this gives you more of a bigger picture so we can understand how everything fits as we start moving over to the cloud. So when customers move from GP to Business Central, they're moving into a broader like M365 ecosystem. And Business Central is really designed to work seamlessly with tools that most of you use already today, like Outlook and Excel, Teams, Power BI, maybe even Copilot. And then Microsoft is actually offering our on-prem clients to move to the cloud, and which is called Bridge to the Cloud promotion. And it allows our clients to, with a dual license with GP and Business Central for a limited time. And it's just allowing you to make that transition a little bit easier. So currently, that Bridge to Cloud program offers a discount as long as our clients are current on their annual enhancement, their GP enhancement. So that's something we certainly can work with you on. But outside of that, the licensing is pretty straightforward. There's a couple of different licenses, like Essentials is $80 per user per month, and that's just for your core financials and operations. If you need to get into the premium license, that's $110 a user a month, and that's if you're needing a full-blown manufacturing or any service components. And then there is a team member license, which is what we call a read-only license, and that's $8 a user a month. So I also want to promote that we have our free licensing assessment available. And this is why we strongly recommend a free licensing assessment so we can help right-size licenses and align licenses with how you are actually working. And then we also manage your Dynamics, but also your M365 licenses. We'll make sure that we get you guys some information on that. But next, let's take a look at what this Microsoft Cloud ecosystem actually looks like when all those pieces come together. So this diagram is a little busy, but it shows that Business Central doesn't just live in isolation. It actually sits inside the broader Microsoft Cloud ecosystem. So at the bottom, the foundation is our Microsoft Azure. And this hosts the cloud infrastructure, and this is where Business Central lives. So it gives you scalability, security, reliability without having to manage all those servers. The Power Platform it adds automation and reporting, and it's actually a low-code apps, things like the Power BI dashboards or approval workflows, some lightweight apps without any heavy development really is where that lies. When we get into the Dynamics 365, this is really where your ERP and your CRM systems sit. Business Central for financials and operations or other Dynamics apps. So if you need CRM or any other industry-specific solutions. And then also with the Office 365, this again is tools that you probably already are using like Outlook and Excel and Teams and PowerPoint, and that fully integrates with Business Central. And then finally, there's a huge ecosystem of ISVs and partner solutions with what we call AppSource, and that extends like the Business Central capabilities, and it's really an industry add-ons, reporting tools, anything from payroll to shipping, and a whole lot of options that are sitting out there. So again, when our customers are moving over to Business Central, just a recap of the slide, they're not just replacing GP, they're plugging an entire connected Microsoft platform together. So we wanted to talk a little about that on this particular slide. Kyle, I'll transition it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jodi. That was a great overview of kind of the infrastructure and architecture that goes behind Business Central and all the things that it connects with. What I really want to take a little bit of time to talk about now is when you're actually using Business Central and what that looks like compared to GP, but also what you should be thinking about now when you have that opportunity to move things over to Business Central. It's really a time for you to define or redefine what your business needs are. So this is your time to take the opportunity to grow and change. Switching to a new ERP is a really big undertaking, and it's obviously a lot of work, but it's also a huge opportunity to be able to redefine what you need. The biggest thing we like to caution against is don't get stuck in the mindset of because that's how we've always done it. Maybe decisions were made a decade ago or more when you first started using GP and you did it just because that's what worked the easiest or what worked with GP. And when you switch over to Business Central, you get that opportunity to redefine those things and find new processes. So really we like to ask the questions of what is going well? What do you really like about GP right now or what you're doing with your day-to-day operations? Then ask yourself what could be going better. It's look at the positive, look at maybe the negative. Where can we make improvements? Things like manual transaction entry, managing your customers and vendors and data, things that just are taking more time than they need or aren't getting you the information that you need right within your ERP software. Ask yourself, where are you stuck? What are things that you wish you could be doing, but you just can't? What's your wish list of functionality that you want to see within Business Central? This is the time to start thinking about those things so that you can set those goals and those expectations as you begin that transition. You also want to make sure that everyone is involved in this transition. So it's easy for one person to make the decision that says, yes, we're going from GP to BC, but we don't want to surprise all of our end users or people that maybe only utilize GP every once in a while with suddenly they have to learn a whole new software and all new processes. So take the time to start gathering that feedback. Ask some of those questions we saw on the previous slide. Ask that of everyone that's using GP. What's going well? What could be going better? What are your pain points? What are your wish lists? Getting everyone involved in the process early really makes it so that everyone can sign on and is on board for that transition. And then it's also a time to start assigning roles and responsibilities for a transition to Business Central. So decide who's going to be your decision makers, who are the subject matter experts that really know the processes and the data that you're utilizing in GP right now and how they want those to look within Business Central. You're also going to have to make some decisions on what pieces of data are really important and maybe which ones we don't need to worry about transitioning over. And then also start doing process documentation. If folks have been using for 10 or 15 years, they know their processes like the back of their hand. But if they can take the time to document those right now, it's going to give you that deep dive and analysis of here's what we're really doing and here's what we need to be able to do when we get over to Business Central. And then you take a step back and think about your users and who's accessing GP and who's going to need to access Business Central. One big change with licensing in GP is that GP licensing is for how many people are logged in, what are your concurrent users, versus BC is all about named users. So everyone who's going to have to log into BC is going to need their own licensing. So it's a time to assess who actually needs access and how should they access it. Jodi talked about there's full licenses versus just team member that only has access to visibility. Start considering how you're going to use those. And then also, are there going to be folks that just need access to the data and how are they going to access that? Right now with GP, you do have some external tools, but BC is going to open up a whole new world of Power BI access. And there's tools like PopDoc that you'll hear about probably a lot today that are going to help you look at your BC data, both from within the application and also externally, and then be able to link that back to some of the data that might still exist in GP. So on that topic of data, think about all the different pieces of data that you're tracking and where it's coming from. So what data integrations do you use currently in GP? Are you using Integration Manager or Smart Connect to bring data into GP, and start thinking about how those are going to look once you get to Business Central? Business Central does still have tools like Smart Connect available, but maybe there are some other options that we can start exploring. Think about what third-party solutions you use. A lot of us are familiar with things like SmartList Builder, Green Shades for payroll and taxes, Akorma for payables checks. We've got a lot of other partners here today with iSolutions and ADP and Avalara. All those things that you might be using right now in GP, you're going to want to make sure you have a solution for that when it comes to Business Central, and whether that's just the same product or maybe there's a new one out there, or maybe some of those functionalities that you've been needing an ISV for now are actually available within Business Central. So those are the things to start thinking about and at least have that kind of list together of what you need. Any customizations that you've done with GP, obviously you're going to want to analyze those and see, are they truly a part of our internal functionality? Were they just a nice to have when we built them? And if so, how are we going to bring those over to Business Central? Business Central has a huge library of apps that are supported within the software already, and it's also, I'll say, relatively easy to be able to customize and build something custom as well there. And then think about reporting strategies. Again, we talked about access to Power BI. There's other external reporting tools that we'll be able to utilize, and think about what you're using now in GP and how you want to translate those over to Business Central. And then also start thinking about on the data field, what historical data do we still want to have access to, or what do we want to try to bring over? Our general philosophy is that we're looking at bringing over kind of the outstanding transactions and summary balances, but sometimes you want to be able to view a full history. And if that's going to be something you need, is it feasible or viable to try to put that into Business Central, or do we utilize some tools to keep access to that still within GP? You'll probably hear it again. I've already mentioned it once, but E1 has a solution called PopDoc that we've been using a lot to help folks merge data together of what stayed in GP versus what's in Business Central, be able to access that right from in Business Central, and then be able to view those both at the same time. And then, of course, we've already talked about it. We've only been here for an hour, and it's already been brought up several times of your Copilot and AI tools. You're going to have access to these in Business Central, and they're going to be a lot more tightly integrated with Business Central. So how do you want to utilize those? There's default agents that are available within Business Central that you can start using. And so think about those of places where you want to be able to help utilizing AI versus maybe just some of your built-in processes that you're doing right now within GP. So that's all kind of the big picture of what you want to start thinking about with your GP processes and GP data right now. So I'll hand it back over to Jodi to talk a little bit about what that plan should look like.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. So we went into some infrastructure, the look and feel of GP as we transition over to Business Central. Kyle talked about how we can help prepare to make that transition to the cloud. And now we're going to talk about helping with the planning and how we can have some expectations as we do move forward with that. So timeline, let's get the chatter going, right? Timeline is a really big decision on what works best for you and your team. When do we want to get there and go live? When do we want to kick it off? So discussing when that good time is for your team and indicating for that right time is really going to give you a good, successful transition as well, making sure you're available. And then how long does it take when we start looking at a transition? This is a really common question that I get from a lot of our clients when we're talking about making that transition from GP over to Business Central. And Business Central implementations can really range. It depends on the complexity. It can be anywhere around that 5 to 6 months, but that can vary based on factors like, do you have integrations and customizations? Is there complexity within your organization? And again, how available your team is when you want to get started and how much time you're able to dedicate per week as well. And we work with you on that as we put our project plan together. But there is also another approach where we can do phase and start out with more of your base core financials, and that could be somewhere around 12 weeks for a timeline. And that's just really getting it set up, getting you stable, get the users used to working within Business Central. So once we meet with your team, we're certainly able to give you a better timeline on what that expectation can be for your team. But a lot also comes up around phases. And I think this is a really important conversation to have. A lot of folks say, can we phase this? And we absolutely can. It's really by narrowing that initial scope, right? So sometimes people are using what they have in GP and they want to just move that over to Business Central. They want to lower the risk. They want to have cost control. They may even want to just reduce complexity for those users versus introducing some new things. But then there are others that want to add the features and functionality in that first phase. So we handhold through that. We ask some questions. We help with what the estimates are going to be and what those phases are and what they look like for timelines as well. And then that does transition, the estimates transition over to budget. Do we have a budget in place for this transition? Many responses I hear is, I don't know what to budget. I don't have a clue how much this is going to cost us. And that's okay, because when we meet with you, that's why we start with those requirements gathering, asking you and your subject matter experts some questions along the way. And then we can help put that statement of work together for you, that range of magnitude, if you will, to help you guys put that budget in place. So if that's happening sometime this quarter, next quarter, this year, next year at least, there's a placeholder in there for budget, which I know is a big part of your planning as well. So as we talk about dates, and with Microsoft talking about GP's different important dates, these should not be a surprise to you, but we did want to call them out. This month is the end of any new GP licenses being purchased. December 31st of 2029, that's when end of the product support and updates will be coming out. And that is really where we want to talk a little about no longer having those product enhancements, tax updates, your payroll tax updates, those types of things, hot fixes. That's going to be ending in the end of 2029. And at that point, basically GP essentially, we can always continue supporting you. And I think that's something that we will be here for our GP clients, but there's so much great time that Microsoft gave our clients for that planning. So we'll help you get to what date works best for you. But there is that hard stop for payroll. If you're using payroll within GP, that will want to have some pre-planning for that. And then April 30th of 2031 is when all security updates end. And so those are just some timelines to keep in mind. And again, we're very happy to talk with you about that as we go through those areas. So wanted to share with you what the Microsoft timeline is. All right, so we talked about planning with some flexibility. There's some things here, factors that can influence the time and the cost of these moving over to Business Central from your on-premise solution. And this really talks about the time and cost of GP to Business Central project. We talked about what those licenses are, but again, we will help right size what the estimate is for the one-time implementation services to get you moved over to the cloud. But there's a lot of factors to that, as I mentioned previously, things like your system size, complexity, those customizations, integrations, data quality. That really all plays a big role in that, along with the training. But really the key takeaways is that we don't treat any two projects the same, right? So that's why really understanding those factors early on really help you plan. We can give out best practices. We handhold you through all of that. Our team really helps set expectations that align with you and your timeline and your team as well. So just a couple more slides here. This really emphasizes the importance of having the right people involved early. Kyle kind of talked about that as well. A successful GP to Business Central migration really requires everybody from decision makers and subject matter experts to the end users. And that's all working together with your team and ours. And it's also a really good reminder that it's never too early to start cleaning up your data and start cleansing your data, duplications, those sorts of things. Start thinking about processes and documentation. and then regularly reassessing your timeline and budget and plan for that hypercare after go live to ensure what a smooth transition is. And our team, again, can help you with that planning as we go along the way. For client resources, this is a question I get asked regularly. How much time can we expect our team to put towards this? And again, this all really depends on where we're at in the stage of the project. So please do keep that in mind. But we have executive sponsors, might be C-level. We could do some steering committee meetings. Project managers are going to help oversee a project, scope, budget, making sure that the project stays aligned with your team. You have business process owners along with subject matter experts that can be very involved depending on where we're at with the stage of the project. And IT, the time really isn't that demanding. We may need access as far as getting into your environment or being able to piggyback on some licensing. We wanted to share this because we know that this is a big discussion based on the timing of when those projects move forward as well. All right. So the key takeaways, this slide brings everything together. A successful move from your GP over to Business Central really requires looking, again, outside of this just being an ERP move. It really is helping us and you understand your current environment and really supporting any other ISV solutions that you have and really aligning the teams. And I think that's a big part about realistically planning around the budget and timing and efforts. We also want to make sure we're going to do the call out for that free licensing assessment. We would love for you to take advantage of that. We have a great team that can walk you through that as well.